Each senator, when his or her name is called, will stand in his or her place and vote guilty or not guilty as required by Rule 23 of the Senate Rules on Impeachment. Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6 of the Constitution, regarding the vote required for conviction on impeachment, provides that no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present.
Trump is not resigning. He is not admitting defeat. He is not going anywhere quietly. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Trump went on Truth Social and essentially declared war on his own party. He posted, "I won't quit. Rhinos will regret this betrayal. I will fight these traitors to the end." That post racked up 65 million views in just a few hours. This came after Speaker Mike Johnson privately went to Trump and begged him to step down. Johnson told him directly, resigning is the only way to save the party, that Republicans will lose the House tomorrow if Trump stays in office. And Trump's answer was no, absolutely not. He is fighting, he is staying, and he is practically daring Republicans to remove him by force. And now Washington is in a full-on meltdown because impeachment is happening. The House is set to vote on January 12th, just 3 days from now. And Trump just made sure that vote is going to be the ugliest, most divided, most bitter vote in the history of the United States Congress. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. This is significant because just yesterday there was that confusing post where Trump seemed to be admitting it was all over, where he said there was no path forward. And everybody started thinking maybe Trump was getting ready to resign. Maybe he was finally accepting reality. But no, that was apparently just a brief moment of weakness. Or maybe it was a deliberate mind game, making everyone think he was giving up just so he could come back swinging even harder. Classic Trump psychological warfare. But now he has made his position absolutely clear. He is not quitting. He is not resigning. He is fighting impeachment, fighting removal, and fighting every single person who has turned against him. And he specifically called out RINOs, Republicans in name only. That is Trump openly declaring war on his own party, on Johnson, on the Republicans who voted for impeachment in committee, on the 40 Freedom Caucus members threatening to walk out and resign. Trump is saying, if you are against me, you are a traitor, you are a rhino, you are the enemy, and I will fight you until the very end. Now, the background behind all of this defiance is Johnson's ultimatum. Johnson went to Trump, not publicly, but privately, through back-channel communications and laid out the numbers in plain terms. Republicans hold 217 seats. Democrats hold 215. That is a 2-seat majority. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Doug LaMalfa have already resigned, and 40 more Freedom Caucus members have signed resignation letters and are ready to walk out, ready to quit Congress altogether, rather than be put in a position where they have to defend Trump. If even half of those members resign, Democrats take control of the House. Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker. H.R. 353 gets an immediate floor vote, and it passes. The articles go to the Senate. Trump gets convicted. Trump gets removed. So Johnson told Trump directly the only way to stop all of that from happening is to voluntarily resign. Step down now, before the vote, before the resignations start coming in. Let Vance take over. Give the party a chance to recover. Give Republicans a fighting chance to avoid a total collapse. And Trump's response? No, absolutely not. I will not quit. And you are a traitor for even bringing it up. That is Trump choosing to go down fighting rather than accepting what is coming. And now Republicans are completely trapped because the impeachment vote is happening regardless. The Judiciary Committee passed the articles 24-15, that is 7 Republican yes votes, more than the 5 who voted yes in the initial procedural vote. The momentum is growing. More Republicans are breaking away from Trump, and the full House floor vote is scheduled for January 12th, 3 days from now on a Sunday, in an emergency session, because Democrats want to move fast. They want to strike while the evidence is fresh, while public outrage is at its peak, and while protests with 300,000 people are out in the streets demanding Trump be removed. So the vote happens Sunday, and based on what we saw in committee, you could very well see 20 to 30 House Republicans voting yes. That means the articles pass with strong bipartisan support. That means they go to the Senate with enormous momentum behind them. And that makes a conviction significantly more likely. The 40 Freedom Caucus members sitting on those resignation letters are creating an impossible situation because if they do not resign, they have to show up and cast a vote on impeachment. And most of them simply cannot bring themselves to vote yes. They cannot vote to remove Trump, no matter what he has done. But if they vote no, they are out there defending the indefensible. They are defending a president who ordered ICE to kill American citizens, who covered up evidence, who is sitting at 36% approval, and who is single-handedly destroying the party. So they are now looking at a third option, just not voting at all. Just walking away, resigning before they ever have to make that impossible choice. And if that is what they do, Democrats win. They take control of the House, and they pass impeachment anyway. Please double-check responses. The protests, reaching 300,000 people, with National Guard units being called in, shows that this situation is spiraling into a full-blown crisis. These are not peaceful marches anymore. These are confrontational, aggressive protests, clashes with police, over 50 officers injured, federal buildings being attacked, and ICE facilities being vandalized. In some cities, this is getting dangerously close to riot levels. Governors are calling in the National Guard. The federal government is deploying extra security trying to stop this from turning into another January 6th, except this time it is people on the left out in those streets demanding Trump's removal and demanding accountability. And if Trump refuses to leave on his own, if he forces a full impeachment and trial, these protests are only going to get bigger, more violent, and more dangerous.
Deeply divided moment playing out in American history as we come on the air. President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1, abuse of power, and on Article 2, obstruction of Congress. The votes down party lines as predicted. And all day long here, we've been watching the short bursts of anger, the closing arguments from both sides.
Judge Ma's contempt deadline is adding another layer of serious legal trouble because Judge Ma is the federal judge overseeing the lawsuits connected to the ICE shootings. Ma has ordered the administration to hand over the complete unedited body camera footage from Renee Nicole Good's death, all of it, not the carefully edited version that was already released to the public. And that deadline is tomorrow, January 10th. If Trump's administration fails to comply, Judge Ma can hold officials in contempt of court, can order arrests, can hit them with massive fines, and can sanction the government directly. And that creates yet another crisis, yet another scandal, and yet another piece of damning evidence for the impeachment case, because if Trump's people are being held in contempt for hiding evidence related to the ICE shooting, that proves obstruction, proves a cover-up, and proves that Trump has something he does not want the public to see. Trump's approval rating sitting at 36% is nothing short of catastrophic. That is lower than Nixon during Watergate, lower than any modern president in recent history, and it is still going down. Every single day brings new polling numbers showing Trump bleeding more support. And Republicans are watching those numbers. They are picking up their phones and hearing from their own constituents who are telling them vote for impeachment or we will vote you out. That is real political pressure. That is exactly the kind of pressure that makes Republicans break away from their party, vote their conscience, and choose their own political survival over loyalty to Trump. So when the House votes on Sunday, do not be surprised if 25 or 30 Republicans vote yes. Do not be surprised if those articles pass 245 to 190 with strong bipartisan support, with a clear message from the American people, and with serious momentum heading into the Senate trial. Trump's decision to fight guarantees the worst possible outcome for him, because if he had resigned voluntarily, he could have shaped how the story was told. He could have said he was stepping down for the good of the country. He could have walked away with at least some dignity still intact. But by choosing to fight, by forcing impeachment, by going to war against the Republicans who turned on him, Trump is making sure that his removal is as ugly, as contentious, and as damaging as it possibly can be to the party, to the country, and to whatever is left of his legacy. This is Trump choosing to burn everything to the ground rather than accept a loss with any kind of grace. All right, so let's talk about how we actually got to this point, because Trump's decision to fight back did not come out of nowhere. It is the result of an entire week of escalating pressure building up all at once. It started with the Judiciary Committee hearing 2 days ago, and that hearing was absolutely devastating. ICE whistleblowers took the stand and testified that Trump personally ordered aggressive arrest quotas. Video evidence was shown in that hearing footage of agents planting evidence after they shot and killed Renee Nicole Good. Constitutional scholars came in and laid out clearly and in detail exactly why Trump's conduct meets the standard for impeachment. Please double-check responses. And 5 Republicans voted alongside Democrats to move the articles forward. That was the first crack, the first real sign that Republicans were willing to step away from Trump. Then more information started coming out. Anonymous sources leaked that Johnson had been quietly communicating with Trump behind the scenes, trying to convince him to resign. Johnson was walking Trump through the numbers, the resignation threats, the polling, the betting markets, all of it pointing in the same direction, inevitable removal. And Johnson was making the argument that if Trump stepped down voluntarily, he could still have some control over how it all played out. He could negotiate his exit on his own terms. He might even be able to avoid prosecution. But if he forced impeachment, he would lose all of that leverage, walk away with nothing, and face removal and total public humiliation. Trump rejected every bit of that. He rejected the argument. He rejected the entire concept, because Trump's mindset simply does not have room for strategic retreat. It does not allow for cutting losses or admitting defeat. Trump believes you always fight. You never surrender. You go after your enemies until they back down. And that is exactly what he is doing right now, going after Johnson, going after the Republicans who voted for impeachment, going after everyone who turned on him. He is hoping his base will rally behind him. He is hoping his supporters will put enough pressure on these Republicans to make them back off. Except it is not working this time, because Trump's base is smaller than he thinks it is. With his approval rating at 36%, he has already lost massive portions of the coalition that got him elected in 2024. He has lost suburban voters. He has lost independents. He has lost moderate Republicans. He has even lost some MAGA supporters, people who are simply exhausted by the constant chaos, who watched the Kennedy Center meltdown and quietly started thinking maybe this man really is unfit to hold office. So his base cannot save him. It cannot generate enough pressure to stop impeachment. It cannot prevent his removal. The 7 Republican yes votes in the Judiciary Committee tell you exactly where this is heading because committee members are hardcore party loyalists. They are specifically chosen to defend the party line and protect party interests. So if 7 of them voted for impeachment, that strongly suggests you could see 25 or even 30 yes votes on the full House floor because the full House has more moderates, more members from competitive swing districts, and more members who are absolutely terrified of being seen defending Trump right now. So when that vote happens on Sunday, you might be looking at 230 votes for impeachment, maybe more. All Democrats plus 24 Republicans. That is a strong bipartisan majority. That sends a message to the entire country that Trump has lost even his own party. Now let's talk about these 40 Freedom Caucus members sitting on those resignation letters. These are hardline conservatives, Tea Party types, hardcore MAGA loyalist people who should be Trump's strongest and most reliable supporters. And they are threatening to quit Congress rather than defend him. Why? Because they can see exactly what is coming. They can see Trump dragging the entire party down with him. They see the approval rating at 36%. They see 300,000 people out in the streets. They see the betting markets predicting removal. And they are sitting there thinking, I cannot win re-election if my name is attached to this. I need to get out. I need to protect my political future. I need to make sure I am not painted with the same brush as Trump's scandals. So resignation becomes the escape hatch, the way to avoid an impossible vote. The way to say, I saw what was happening, I could not support it, so I walked away. And politically, that is a much safer move than voting yes or no on impeachment. Because voting yes makes you a traitor in the eyes of MAGA. Voting no makes you look like you are covering for Trump's crimes. But resigning, that is taking a stand without actually picking a side. That is saying this entire situation is wrong and I refuse to be part of it. Voters might actually respect that. They might be willing to re-elect you later down the road once all of this has settled down. But here is the problem. If those 40 members actually resign, Republicans lose the House immediately. No vote needed, no impeachment drama required, just automatic Democratic control, because 40 resignations drops Republicans down to around 177 seats. Democrats have 215. Democrats win. Hakeem Jeffries becomes Speaker, committees flip, and impeachment happens instantly. So the real strategic question for these 40 members is about timing. Do they resign before the Sunday vote? After it? Do they wait to see how things unfold? If they resign before the vote, they avoid having to cast that ballot and they walk out before the crisis hits its peak. But they also hand Democrats control of the House before the articles are even voted on, which takes a lot of the drama out of it. Because once Democrats have the majority, they will pass those articles no matter what. If they resign after the vote, they may still be forced to show up on Sunday and choose a side, which is exactly the impossible position they are desperately trying to avoid. So the most likely scenario? They resign Saturday night, right before the Sunday vote. That way they do not have to participate. But the articles still get voted on with the full weight and attention of the nation watching. That gives them maximum political cover while keeping their hands as clean as possible. The National Guard being deployed in Washington, D.C. and other cities tells you just how seriously authorities are treating this moment because 300,000 protesters on the streets is a massive, powerful movement. We are talking numbers comparable to the Women's March, to the George Floyd protests, to some of the largest demonstrations in modern American history. And this movement has one single goal: get Trump out. Not policy changes, not reforms, just remove Trump, impeach him, convict him, and get him out of office. And the people in those streets are prepared to stay there until it happens. They are willing to get arrested. They are willing to clash with police. They are willing to disrupt daily life until someone in power listens. That is the kind of sustained, relentless pressure that is impossible for politicians to ignore. Members of Congress walk past these crowds every single day. They hear the chants, they see the signs with their own names on them, and they realize these are my people. These are voters from my district, and they are demanding that I vote for impeachment. If I do not, they will vote me out in November. So these protests are directly driving political decisions, making impeachment more likely, making conviction more likely, and making Trump's removal more likely with every passing day. The violence at these protests is a serious concern. 50 officers injured is not just pushing and shoving, that is real, serious confrontations. Projectiles being thrown, officers being physically attacked, some protesters showing up armed, and that creates a full security crisis. It forces authorities to crack down harder, it makes the situation on the ground more dangerous, but it also makes crystal clear just how angry people are and how deeply they feel about all of this. Americans do not usually riot over politics. We are not France. We are not Hong Kong. We typically protest peacefully, make our voices heard, and go home. But when citizens are being killed by their own government, when the president lies about it, when evidence gets planted to cover it up, and when absolutely nobody is held accountable, that creates rage. That creates a willingness to get confrontational. That creates violence. And while that violence is deeply unfortunate, what it tells politicians is this is real. This is a crisis. This is not going away until Trump is removed. Judge Ma's contempt deadline tomorrow is creating yet another immediate crisis. The administration has been dragging its feet for weeks, claiming they need more time to review footage, hiding behind claims of executive privilege, waving the national security flag, all of it just excuses to avoid handing over the complete, unedited body camera footage from Renee's death. Because that footage apparently shows things this administration absolutely does not want the public to see. Maybe it shows the evidence planting more clearly. Maybe it shows agents admitting to mistakes. Maybe it shows supervisors giving the order to cover it all up. Whatever is on that footage, Trump's people are determined to keep it buried. But Judge Ma has run out of patience. The message is clear: handed over by tomorrow, or face contempt of court. And contempt means officials go to jail. It means enormous fines. It means serious, real consequences. So tomorrow, one of two things happens: either that footage gets released or officials get arrested. Either way, it is a crisis. If the footage comes out, it will almost certainly show damning evidence that makes the impeachment case even stronger and makes conviction in the Senate even more likely. If officials are held in contempt instead, that proves obstruction. That proves Trump is actively hiding evidence. And that also makes impeachment more justified. Now, Trump going after Johnson is particularly significant because Johnson has been Trump's single most loyal ally in all of Congress. Johnson defended Trump through absolutely everything. He made excuses. He spun every scandal. He used his power as speaker to shield Trump from consequences at every turn. And now Trump is calling him a Reno, calling him a traitor, and threatening that Johnson will regret ever asking him to resign. That is Trump burning his very last bridge, cutting off his very last major supporter in Congress. And it shows exactly how cornered and how desperate Trump truly is right now. Because if Trump actually believed he could survive this, he would be doing everything he could to keep Johnson on his side. He would be protecting that relationship. But when Trump is frightened, he does not think strategically. He just attacks. He lashes out. He burns every bridge in sight. And every time he does that, he makes his own situation worse, makes more Republicans willing to walk away from him, and makes his removal more certain. The Senate trial math is also critical here because getting impeached in the House is one thing. Actually getting convicted in the Senate is something else entirely. You need 67 votes to convict, that is a 2/3 majority. Democrats have maybe 48 or 49 seats. That means you need somewhere between 18 and 19 Republican senators to cross the aisle and vote to convict. Historically, that is an incredibly high bar. In normal times, it would be almost impossible to reach. But these are not normal times. Trump's approval is sitting at 36%. Republican senators are watching those numbers. They are watching the protests in the streets. They are watching the evidence that came out of the Judiciary Committee hearing. And some of them are quietly running the calculation. Can I actually survive the 2026 or 2028 elections if I go out there and defend Trump? If I vote to acquit him despite everything on the table? And some of them are landing on the same answer: no. They have to vote to convict if they want to protect their own political futures. So those 18 or 19 Republican votes are within reach. Conviction is within reach. Removal is within reach. Trump seems to be betting that it will not happen, that Republicans will fall in line, that his base will pressure them into backing off. But that is the exact same bet Trump has been making throughout this entire process, and he keeps losing it. Republicans keep breaking ranks. They keep voting against him. They keep walking away. So what exactly would make the Senate trial any different? And the connection to Trump's other scandals makes everything even worse, because this impeachment is not just about the ICE shootings. It is about Venezuela. It is about the Senate War Powers vote. It is about the Kennedy Center meltdown. It is about economic failures. It is about weeks and weeks of scandal after scandal piling on top of each other. Every new incident reinforces all the ones before it. It makes the full picture darker and more damning. It makes removal feel less like a political choice and more like a necessity. And Republicans are not looking at just one isolated incident anymore. They are looking at the entire pattern. Weeks of chaos, incompetence, and outright criminal behavior that collectively make the case that Trump is simply unfit to remain president. That is what ultimately drives conviction, not any one single scandal, but the total weight of everything combined, the pattern that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that Trump cannot continue to hold this office. All right, so what actually happens on Sunday? What should we realistically expect from the impeachment vote? And what comes after that? Let's walk through it step by step. First, the vote itself. The House comes into session on Sunday, January 12th, for an emergency session. Democrats control the floor. They bring H.R. 353 up for debate and a vote. The debate will probably go on for several hours. Democrats will lay out the evidence, play video footage from the Judiciary Committee hearing, read aloud the testimony from ICE whistleblowers, and make the full argument that Trump's conduct is impeachable, that he ordered the quotas that led directly to the deaths of American citizens, that he covered up the evidence, that he obstructed justice, and that he violated the constitutional rights of American citizens. Then Republicans get their turn to respond. Some will defend Trump. They will say he did nothing wrong. They will call it all political. They will say Democrats simply hate the man and this is just another witch hunt. But others will break ranks. They will stand up at that podium and explain clearly and publicly why they are voting yes, why the evidence is simply too strong to ignore, why they can no longer stand up and defend Trump, why they have to vote their conscience. And those speeches are going to be powerful precisely because these are Republicans, members of Trump's own party standing up and saying he needs to be removed from office. After the debate wraps up, the vote happens. Electronic voting takes roughly 30 minutes. And based on what we saw come out of the Judiciary Committee, you are looking at somewhere around 230 to 240 yes votes, all 215 Democrats, plus somewhere between 15 and 25 Republicans. That is a solid, clear bipartisan majority, and it sends the articles to the Senate with significant weight and legitimacy behind them. Second, Trump's reaction. He will be glued to his screen the entire time, posting throughout the whole thing, going after every member who votes yes, calling them traitors, demanding his supporters line up primary challengers against them. It is going to be a complete meltdown, worse than the Kennedy Center, worse than anything we have seen from him so far, because Trump is going to be sitting there watching his own impeachment happen in real time, watching his own party abandon him one vote at a time, watching that vote count climb until it crosses the threshold, and he will completely lose it. Expect dozens of posts, all caps, attacking everyone, threatening payback, claiming fraud, claiming the vote was rigged, anything and everything to avoid accepting what is happening right in front of him. Third, the aftermath in the House. Once those articles pass on Sunday, they go directly to the Senate. The Chief Justice presides, senators are sworn in as jurors, and the trial begins probably within a week. Democrats want to move fast. They want to keep the momentum going, strike while the pressure is still at its highest, and get Trump convicted and removed before he can do any more damage. So the trial likely kicks off by January 20th, runs for around 2 weeks, and a verdict comes sometime in early February. That is the timeline we are looking at. Trump could be removed from office within a month. Fourth, the protest reaction. If impeachment passes on Sunday, the protests will probably hit their peak. You could be looking at 500,000 people in the streets celebrating, demanding Senate conviction, keeping the pressure turned all the way up, making sure every Republican senator knows that America is watching, making sure they understand if you vote to acquit, voters will make you pay for it. But that many people in Washington also creates serious logistical challenges. Law enforcement stretched to its limit. The risk of violence goes up. National Guard presence expands. Active duty military potentially on standby. All of it aimed at keeping this from spiraling into something far worse. Fifth, the Senate trial. This is where everything gets decided. House impeachment means nothing if the Senate turns around and acquits. So this trial matters enormously. The prosecutors lay out the evidence. Trump's lawyers mount their defense. Senators ask their questions, and then they vote. The real question is, can Trump actually hold on to 34 Republican votes? Can he do that with his approval at 36%, with overwhelming evidence stacked against him, and with hundreds of thousands of people in the streets demanding conviction? Maybe not. You could very well see 15 or 20 Republican senators break away. Senators like Romney, Murkowski, and Collins, people who have already broken with Trump before, plus senators in competitive swing states who need to win re-election, plus senators who genuinely and personally believe Trump is unfit to hold office. Add all of those up, and you might just get to 67 votes. You might get conviction, you might get removal. Sixth, Trump's legal strategy during the trial. He will go after the entire process. He will call it unconstitutional. He will claim the House vote was rigged. He will say the witnesses are lying. His lawyers will make highly technical arguments about what the proper standard for impeachment actually is, about whether Trump's specific actions meet that standard, about what conduct qualifies as impeachable. But those arguments are weak because the evidence is overwhelming. Because constitutional scholars already took the stand and testified that Trump's conduct is clearly impeachable, because the people who wrote the Constitution specifically designed impeachment for exactly this kind of situation, a president who abuses his power and obstructs justice. So Trump's defense will fall apart, and conviction becomes the likely outcome. Seventh, the 25th Amendment is still sitting on the table throughout all of this. If the cabinet looks at Trump's behavior during the trial, looks at his unhinged posts, looks at the way he is attacking absolutely everyone around him, and concludes that he is mentally unfit to continue serving, they can invoke the 25th Amendment and remove him before the trial even concludes. That option might actually be more appealing to Republicans because it is cleaner, faster, and far less divisive. The cabinet acts, Congress ratifies, and it is done. Trump is out. Vance is in, and the Senate trial becomes irrelevant. So keep a very close eye on cabinet activity, any unusual meetings, any whispers about 25th Amendment discussions happening behind closed doors. Eighth, the mass resignation threat is still hanging over everything. If those 40 Freedom Caucus members actually follow through and resign before the Sunday vote, Democrats take control of the House, and the entire dynamic shifts because now it is Democrats passing impeachment entirely on their own. No Republican votes, no bipartisan cover, just a straight party line impeachment that might, ironically, end up helping Trump. It hands him the argument that this is purely political. It lets him tell his supporters that it is not legitimate without Republican backing, so the timing of those resignations matters enormously. If they happen before Sunday, they damage the political weight of impeachment. If they happen after, they do far more damage to Trump. Ninth, the international reaction matters more than people realize. America's allies are watching closely. They are worried about stability. They are questioning whether Trump can be trusted, whether the United States is still a reliable partner. And America's adversaries are watching too, looking for opportunity, thinking about how to test American resolve during this period of transition, looking for weaknesses to probe, looking to create new crises that pull attention away from the impeachment process. So expect diplomatic complications. Expect military tensions to flare up. Expect adversaries to start causing problems while America is too busy looking inward to respond. 10th, the economic impact is accelerating. Markets absolutely hate this level of political uncertainty. A president being impeached and potentially removed from office. Massive protests in the streets. The real possibility of violence. All of it together creates volatility. The stock market drops. Bond yields swing up and down. Currency markets come under stress. Investment decisions get put on hold. Businesses pull back and start preparing for the worst. All of that damages the economy, hurts consumer confidence, and makes a recession more likely. And a declining economy only makes Trump even more unpopular, which only adds more pressure for his removal. So what should you actually be watching for in the days ahead? First, watch the vote count on Sunday. How many Republicans vote yes? 20? 30? That number tells you exactly how far Trump has fallen with his own party. Second, watch Trump's posts during and after the vote. Does he escalate? Does he threaten violence? Does he call on his supporters to resist? His words matter because they could directly push people toward dangerous action. Third, watch for resignations. Do those 40 Freedom Caucus members actually walk out? And if so, when exactly? The timing determines whether Democrats take control of the House before or after the vote, and that changes everything. Fourth, watch what Senate Republicans say after the House votes. Are any of them signaling they are open to conviction, or are they still closing ranks around Trump? The tone they take now predicts how the Senate trial ends. Fifth, watch the protests. Do they grow larger after impeachment passes? Do they turn more violent? Do they hold together all the way through the Senate trial? The direction of those protests directly affects the political pressure on every senator casting a vote. Sixth, watch the cabinet. Any signs that 25th Amendment conversations are happening behind closed doors? Any resignations? What the cabinet does in the coming days may very well determine whether Trump even makes it to trial. Seventh, watch Judge Ma's contempt ruling tomorrow. Does the footage get released? Do officials get arrested? Either outcome creates a new crisis. All right, that is where things stand today. Trump defied the resignation demands at 2 o'clock in the morning. He rejected Johnson's plea. He vowed to keep fighting. He called Republicans traitors. The House votes on impeachment this Sunday. It will very likely pass with somewhere between 20 and 30 Republican yes votes. The Senate trial begins within a week after that. Conviction and removal could come within a month. 300,000 protesters are already in the streets demanding Trump's removal. The National Guard has been deployed. Judge Ma's contempt deadline hits tomorrow. Everything is converging at once into one enormous constitutional crisis. Hit that subscribe button, join the newsletter, and I will see you in the next one because Sunday's vote is the single most important moment of Trump's entire presidency. His political life either ends or continues based on that one vote, and we are covering every angle, every vote, every reaction, and every consequence as it happens. This is history. This is democracy being put to the test. This is accountability either happening or failing, and we are documenting every single moment of it. Stay tuned.